we were discussing the conversation which took place on 11th March 1885, and Sri Ram Krishna was in a devotee's house. There were several devotees including Narendra, Girish, and there was a lot of discussion. Sri Ram Krishna encouraged that discussion and gave his own opinion, and there was apparently no conclusion, but Sri Ram Krishna in chapter 9 of this particular conversation says, the heading given is, in Samadhi, Sri Ram Krishna is intoxicated with God. Seating Narendra by his side, Sri Ram Krishna looks at him, suddenly moves still nearer. Narendra does not believe in incarnations of God. But what does that matter? Thakur's love for him knows no bounds. Touching Narendra, he quotes from a song, "Do you feel that your dignity has been wounded? So be it. We are of the same mind as you and we feel for you." These words actually is part of a song, and they were addressed by the gopis of Vrindavan to Radha. I mean, they were all sad. If you remember, in the divine Leela of Sri Krishna, when Sri Krishna leaves Vrindavan, not only Radha but all the gopis were feeling very much upset that Sri Krishna has suddenly left them, and that common grief was shared by all of them. It's not that, but of course Radha felt the pangs more than anybody else. She was deeply devoted to Sri Krishna. So the gopis are addressing and saying that, do you feel that your pride has been wounded? They were very proud. They were feeling proud that Krishna is their own. No doubt Krishna was deeply loved them. But when he left Vrindavan, they felt that they have been deserted. And it was a common feeling shared by all of them. So the gopis are telling, don't worry, don't feel wounded. Sri Krishna is our own. And even if you feel bad, we also feel the same. So we are there to share the grief with you. So that is what, we are of the same mind, and don't worry, we will share this grief together. So Sri Ram Krishna knows that Narendra right now is not in a position to accept or have faith in the existence of an avatara who can be a savior. There was a argument between him and Girish, and Girish apparently had wonderful faith. But Naren, though he did not have that faith, Sri Ram Krishna knew was a highly spiritual aspirant, a great spiritual aspirant. So it really did not matter to Sri Ram Krishna whether he had this faith. He had so much faith in the divinity of Narendra, we'll come to that incident now, that he never for a moment doubted that his chief disciple would ever suffer for lack of faith. Someday or the other he was convinced that he will see the truth and accept the incarnations of God. That's why he very kindly and very patiently, though Narendra disagreed because he was following the path of Jnana, he did not feel the need for an incarnation. And moreover, his philosophical background, his Brahmo background, did not allow him to think of a personal God who can save others. Actually, the Jnanis don't feel there is a need for that. They feel if we have knowledge, we can get mukti. We don't need somebody's grace to achieve that. But Sri Ram Krishna knew that in spite of all the knowledge and the scriptures that we study, even the scriptures, even the Jnanis admit, Shankaracharya also wrote some beautiful hymns on the Divine Mother. This is Navratri. And you know, some of the greatest hymns which Shankaracharya wrote, who was a non-dualist. And apparently everybody thinks that we don't have to believe in an Ishta, or don't have to believe in an incarnation, or don't have to believe in Devi or Shakti to uh, attain spirituality. For them, Shankaracharya has composed so many wonderful hymns to the Divine Mother. Bhavani Ashtakam, if you see, it is one of the most beautiful hymns composed. There are so many hymns on the Divine Mother which Shankaracharya has composed, where he says, without the grace of the Mother, life is futile. So even the Gyanis accept the reality of the Divine Mother, the Parama Prakriti, who assumes human form or in the form of the Divine Mother, helps people attain the goal of their life. So this is one thing which Sri Ramakrishna was keen to prove to Narendra before he entered into Mahasamadhi. And he knew Naren, the large reservoir of spirituality that he was sure that one day a time will come when he will accept his Divine Mother. And in fact, it happened soon. But right now, he's trying to convince, and in a very soft spoken manner, he's telling Narendra. It's not out of arrogance that Narendra has not accepted the Divine Mother or the incarnation of God, that God can come in human form. He accepted Sri Ramakrishna, he loved him deeply, accepted him as a guru, but somehow that incarnation idea was not accepted by him till now. So to Narendra he says, the next heading is, one reason still one realizes God. Then he tells Narendra, as long as there is reasoning, one cannot attain God. You were reasoning, I didn't like it. So he also, though he supported Naren in the beginning, when he and Girish were arguing, he allowed the argument to take place, but finally, in a very soft spoken way, he is telling Narendra that you were reasoning, I didn't like it, because there is a limit to all the reasoning you can do. A stage will come when you have to pin your future on faith. You just can't keep things doubtful and you go on reasoning. There is no end to it. If you reason and decide certain thing is true, then somebody else with a higher power of reason may come and show that what you thought was reasonably correct is wrong. So it all depends on the intellect of the person. Just like a good lawyer can even convert a false case into a true one, and he can save anybody. So because his power of argument and his logic and reasoning capacity is more. That is what exactly happened. They say the dualists were so good at tarka, in logic, that they defeated many of the Advaitins in argument. But that doesn't mean that the faith of one is wrong and the faith of other is correct. Everybody has a right to his own faith, and looked at from different viewpoints, all of them are correct. Sri Ramakrishna believed in that. We have seen the example of the bale fruit. He says you have to accept the whole bale fruit, not just the flesh. When you buy a bale fruit, you just don't tell the seller, the vegetable vendor, that I just want the bale, so the content of the bale, not the seeds and the cover. You have to buy the whole fruit and then extract the kernel, the essential thing which is inside the bale fruit. Then you may throw away the seeds and the cover. But when you buy it, you have to buy it whole. So that is the argument Sri Ramakrishna gave in the previous conversation, that you accept the whole bale fruit. You may like the pulp, you just take the pulp. Somebody else may need the seeds, let them take the seeds. But know for certain that the whole thing is true. So Advaita is true from a particular standpoint, Vishishta Advaita is true from another particular standpoint, and Dvaita is also true, that God can come in human form and bestow his grace and give knowledge to anybody. So he says, then Sri Ramakrishna, to convey this idea, to take care of the other people who were sitting around, who would not have understood the significance of knowledge or the significance of faith as opposed to knowledge, reasoning in deciding spiritual truths. Reasoning can do many things, but it cannot take you to the highest goal. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is telling Narendra, and is giving an example which not only convinces Narendra but also convinces the people who are around. And he says, what is the reason why we talk and make so much of noise? All our talking is, all our reasoning, all our quarreling is because, as I told you, because of our limited knowledge, ignorance, our stupid egos, our selfish egos, our small egos, which does not allow us to see the larger picture, and thinking my view is correct, you are wrong, your other person. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, everybody thinks his clock is giving the correct time. He said, no, my time is correct, your time is wrong, you are 5 minutes slow. Nobody accepts or wants to see that time can be relative. It's your clock is running slow, somebody is running fast, so it's all relative, but people don't see that. So that is why he says all this noise, all this quarrel, all these petty bickerings at each other which human beings do and waste their time, very, very valuable time, fighting over unessentials, is given very clearly conveyed here by a beautiful example. One of the most beautiful examples, Thakur, even this trivial example, Sri Ramakrishna sees a world of wisdom. Everybody knew, because whenever such gatherings were organized, Balram Bose or some other devotee, they would take the responsibility of feeding all the devotees. So this part of the satsang or the program where Sri Ramakrishna used to go and gather, and they used to sing, dance and do kirtan and all. But after that, invariably there would be a feast. So Sri Ramakrishna takes the example of a feast where everybody knows, especially in India, when they all sit, there's a huge gathering and everybody is eating. How much of talking is there in the beginning? So much of noise, gossiping and all those things. So Sri Ramakrishna gives that example and says, people quarrel, people have difference of opinion and quarrel with each other, either about God or any other worldly secular matter. For everything, the quarrel is because of the stupid egos, the silly ego which we have, or ignorance. It may not always be ego, but ego is responsible because we don't accept that we also can be ignorant of certain things. That is a great problem. If we think we know everything, including what spirituality is and what, if there are people who even think that God is this or God is that, how can we say? Sri Ramakrishna used to say, you cannot put an iti. You can, even Gyanis say, neti, neti is the only way. Na iti, not this, not this. But what God is, nobody can say, because that is the limitation which speech and all our organs impose upon us. As long as we are bound prisoners of the gross, we cannot think of the sublime spirit, the divine spirit. We have to accept incarnations, what incarnations say, we have to accept what scriptures say, have a basic faith in them, pursue the sadhana as prescribed by the Ishta, prescribed by the Guru, and towards the Ishta, and by Ishta's grace, by our the deity, grace of the deity and the person or the incarnation whom we are worshipping, we get knowledge. So that knowledge doesn't come by self-effort, that is very clear. And that's why he says, in a feast, in the beginning, Thakur says, how long is there noise at a feast? When people are hungry, when we are ignorant, when we don't know anything, then quarrels start. And the quarrel continues as long as even one person in the crowd has ignorance. If everybody has knowledge, then they will keep quiet. So here he says, it is just like the noise in the feast. As long as people don't sit down to eat, there will be a lot of talking. Oh, what is the menu? Where do we sit? Then there's a lot of noise, uh, arranging, first of all, getting a seat, then sitting there. Then finally, the host starts serving things. Then he says, as soon as the luchis and vegetables, they were delicacies which normally were served during such feasts. Luchis means puris and some kind of bread and vegetables. So, tarkari. So, as long as these two items are not served, maybe the leaves are there or the plates are there, but people still keep talking because they have not started eating, which is the main thing they have come for. I mean, that is the purpose of sitting for a feast. Purpose is not to talk, but since there is no food in the plate, they are doing other things. So also Thakur says, when your brain is empty, your brain has no knowledge, when you are full of ignorance, then you keep on quarreling with each other. When you are full of wisdom, then you become quiet. You know the folly, the fallacy of argument or reasoning, the fallacy of trying to reason things out, because there is no end to reasoning, no end to tarka, as Sri Ramakrishna says, because we are just creating a noise because of ignorance. Some ignorance one person has, other person has some other ignorance, so each one is trying to find the fault of others, and in the process they are not getting at the essence of facts. So he says, as soon as the luchis and vegetables are served, 75% of the noise disappears and all start laughing, because this is one thing which they have observed. It is a fact. There are many facts in this world which can be used as examples, and Thakur has done exactly that. Sometimes he uses very, very crude examples, as he used in the Gospel of Ali Mother. We saw how Thakur was even using the example of diarrhea which he had to prove a point of the absurdity of depending on body for everything, or to give so much importance to the gross existence. How one should focus our mind on the subtle things and the spiritual things. So here, even the simple act of serving luchis, Thakur says spirituality is also like that. As soon as some spiritual food enters you, our ignorance goes. It does not go totally, because some noise is always there. That's why Thakur says 75% of the noise disappears. Because people are hungry, they want spiritual food, and if the Guru gives the right food, then people will be busy eating, doing the sadhana, and there will be less talk. It is only when you don't know what to do as sadhana and you just take up philosophy as a pastime, you go on quarreling. Whether it is philosophy or any other secular matter, as long as there is ignorance, there is quarrel, and there is dispute, and there are so many problems, and that drains away all our energy. So Thakur used to say, don't count the leaves and just eat the mangoes. He used to give many examples, but here he is giving another example, because now almost all of them are hungry. So there is a lot of noise, but moment luchis and vegetables come, all will start eating, and then they don't have time for argument. They don't have time to even talk to each other because they are so hungry now. Say, let us eat first. So if the spiritual hunger comes, if people want to know spirituality and busy with their own sadhana, then they have no time for gossip or argument. They even don't like to discuss scriptures. He said, what is there to discuss about scriptures? I have been given the mantra by the Guru, I just have to practice it and get some experience for myself. If that is true, if I have faith in the Guru, and if I have faith in the sadhana, if I have faith in the mantra, and if I have faith in the process, then what is the point in convincing the whole world that this is the right path, your path is wrong? Let them follow their own path. If a person doesn't believe in spirituality, why should we waste time? That's why Jesus said very clearly, don't throw these pearls before the swine. He used a very crude example, knowing fully well that if pearls are thrown before the swine, they won't understand its importance. They are not going to take those pearls and make a necklace out of it. It's only human beings who understand the value of pearls. So also Jesus believed that if the time is not ripe, no amount of spiritual talk will help anybody because they don't feel the hunger. So also Sri Ramakrishna gives a much more powerful example and a very clear example saying that as long as the luchis and vegetables are not served, tarkari, the noise doesn't stop. But the moment it is done and everybody starts eating, 75% of the noise stops. But there are some people who cannot even enjoy their luchis. In the midst of their spiritual sadhana, they want to create problem for themselves and others. So these are the people, when other dishes are served, so that's why Thakur says, then as they advance further, they even stop that kind of argument and noise. And because there are other dishes, some sweets are coming, some other things are coming. Now they are more engrossed in eating. So there is less and less noise. Then he says when curds are served, curd is normally the last item they serve. When curds are served or payas or something like that on leaf plates, one can only hear the sound of sipping because you can't eat curds. It's a liquid substance. So when you are drinking something, when you are munching something, you can talk. Thakur has observed this very carefully. It's only when we take curds, you can't do things. You can't talk when you are drinking water. Otherwise, you know what difficulty is there. So he says when the curds are taken, there is only the sound of sipping. Nobody can talk at that time. That means when you almost coming towards the end of your sadhana, you become silent. You just be busy with or preoccupied with your own, you enjoy your solitude, you do your sadhana, you mind your own business, which is the most difficult to do in this world. There is a wonderful English proverb that curiosity killed the cat. Definitely, it killed the cat. The cat is a very curious animal. I was discussing the other day that most of these animals have certain characteristics, and when human beings behave in certain strange or stupid ways, we compare them with animals. When you say somebody is brave, you say he's brave as a lion. So from the lion, the characteristic, though lion has other characteristics, bravery is one quality which is appreciated. So if you want to praise a person, you say he's like a lion among men. Narendra, Nara Indra, the lion among men. So the greatest among men. So Narendra, that is the idea. So also when you want to say that somebody is restless, has a very, very fickle mind, he cannot sit quietly, then we say he is like a monkey. Not that he is a monkey, but he is like a monkey because he is exhibiting those characteristics. The lion doesn't have a restless mind. He appears to be very calm, collected, focused, very strong. So people would like, if they are compared to a lion, nobody would like themselves or anybody else to be compared to a monkey. That would be taken as a derogatory remark. So also we say as greedy as a hog, because hogs you will be seen eating they go on eating. So if somebody is very fond of eating, then we say he is as greedy as a hog. So one can imagine that very often these common examples Sri Ramakrishna and other Jesus and others used to give, they convey a wealth of wisdom, saying that they sometimes use these techniques to show that we also, however intelligent, however qualified we may be, we also share some of these characteristics of the animals for which make them susceptible or make them look so stupid. Nobody would appreciate if somebody says you are a monkey, because we consider that monkeys, because of their restlessness, do stupid things. So also when you say greedy as a hog seems to be always eating, and that's why nobody would like if one is fond of food and eats a lot, then perhaps he may not like to be given that adjective, that as greedy as a hog. So also dogs, they are bickering, the bickerings of the dogs. Normally dogs bark at each other. Don't bark like a dog. Though one may be shouting at each other, but then nobody would like to be compared to these dogs as far as barking is concerned. So when there are quarrels, for petty things, these dogs tend to quarrel, the street dogs. They have their own areas. They have several reasons to quarrel. For every stupid reason, they seem to be quarreling with each other. So then that's why you say don't fight like dogs or cats. Cats also have a tendency to quarrel with each other. So also there is a proverb, curiosity killed the cat. So a cat, in most of the stories, animal stories, it's the curiosity. The cat pokes its nose into everything, things which matter and things which don't matter, and then it creates a big noise, and then it gets killed, it gets caught, or maybe it gets killed. So there are so many things, dangerous things, which the cat should not poke his or her nose into that. But when it does, out of curiosity, it is the curiosity that kills them. So also Thakur says that all this noise that you see in the world is because of certain animal characteristics which we exhibit. Sometime, not that we always have those things, we exhibit these characteristics sometime or the other, and at that time, when we assume the characteristics of those animals, we cannot be called as noble human beings. So Sri Ramakrishna, Buddha, and if you see, they used these animals, examples of animals, day-to-day examples, to give a graphic description of the ignorance or the stupidity of our worldly efforts. When we think this is a great achievement, when we think these are wise things which we are doing and consider ourselves to be very wise, as Sri Ramakrishna said, wise as a crow. The crow thinks he is a wise person, but it's always eating filth. So these are some graphic examples Sri Ramakrishna used to give, and it conveys more ideas than speaking volumes and volumes and quoting Shastras and Gita and all those things. He compared a Pandit, a great scholar, saying that a Pandit, a very wise Pandit, may be as wise as a crow. The crow is supposed to be a wise bird. That's what they say, because of its cunning nature, or as sly as the fox. Fox also is supposed to be very sly, but nobody would like themselves to be compared to a fox. He may be very intelligent, but if somebody says you are as sly as a fox, it's not a compliment, definitely. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he gives these examples, he depicts the animal nature in human beings and shows how our nobility is sacrificed at the cost of all these qualities which show us more as animals than human beings. So also here the question of noise and sound which people make when they are arguing or quarreling with each other is compared to the noise which is there in the beginning of a feast, because they are hungry. We are hungry for knowledge, we are hungry, we have a lot of ignorance, many things are not known. Spirituality, the spiritual values are not known to us. If that is the condition, then we quarrel, then there is noise. But the moment luchis and other things come, a little knowledge comes, we become a little quiet. And when finally the pious or the curds come, Thakur says, you just hear a little sound of the curds, that's all. But everybody is busy and with a heavy meal. Then he says, and when the feast is over, I mean when one is full, when one is spiritually mature, then he goes into samadhi, or then he says the feast is over. People now say, now let me go to sleep, I have eaten a lot. Even if a lot of people out of curiosity want to gossip, they say, no, nothing, now I am full, let me go and sleep. So Thakur says, similarly, when you come nearer to God, the less you reason, the less you argue, the less you quarrel. When he is attained, no words, no reasoning remains. then it is like sleep, samadhi. He's not comparing sleep to samadhi, but he says after a great good meal, when one is full, when one is full of spirituality, then he doesn't bother anybody because he's in samadhi, he's in a state where he doesn't need reasoning to convince him that God is real and all else is unreal. He does not require anybody to tell him, he does not require even the scriptures to tell him that the world is a dangerous place, that our senses are cheating us day and night. He doesn't need to be told by quoting the scriptures that how dangerous the attachment to the world is. They simply are full of the knowledge of God, they are full of spirituality, so they just keep quiet and just don't bother about what others feel or bother about reasoning and trying to understand or trying to convince others. Then, saying this, Thakur gently strokes Narendra's body and touches his chin. See, Narendra, in spite of his arguments and in spite of his loving reason, he was not an illogical man. He was deeply spiritual. Thakur knew that. So, though he said, I don't like reasoning, he knew that Naren will not get hurt if he told the truth. He just pointed out some defects which his disciple had, and like a true disciple, Narendra did not take offense at his words because he loved Thakur so deeply. Though he may not have convinced him in many, it took a lot of convincing to convince Narendra of the possibility or the reality of an incarnation. But Thakur was so patient. So he does some actions which M is surprised and he is confused to know why Sri Ramakrishna is doing that. Is he transmitting spiritual power to Narendra? Because very often we see when somebody was vainly arguing, Thakur used to go and touch them, and all their ego, all their resistance to those ideas would go and they would become deeply spiritual. He has given these states to Narendra also in the past. He just touched his chest and he gave an experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So, saying this, Thakur goes to him, gently strokes Narendra's body and touches his chin, just like one would caress a small child. He just goes and tries to convince him or touch him. Now, one of the reasons which M thinks is that by touching him, he is trying to give. Sri Ramakrishna had the capacity to transmit spirituality by touch, not just through the mantra, not through the sound. He could touch. Of course, many people have that capacity. If you touch a holy person, that's the reason why we do pranams to very senior and revered monks. The reason is by touching them, we apparently get a little bit of spirituality. That's why Holy Mother used to say, when some people touch me, all the sins, I feel a burning sensation and I have to pour Ganges water. So the touching definitely transmits some kind of spirituality. So here perhaps one reason which M thinks Thakur was gently stroking his chin and his body was that, and he was saying Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. So by repeating that, M says, why is he acting like this? I mean, Sri Ramakrishna. Is Sri Ramakrishna seeing Narendra, in Narendra, the very presence of God, as he had told earlier, that I don't have attachment to other people, but I have attachment to you because I see you or in you the presence of God. So when there are certain people for whom we have a great respect, not Naren was definitely his disciple, but at the same time he had a wonderful respect towards him because he saw that here is a pure person. Here is one who will take my message to the whole world. And he could see that divinity very clearly as he saw things inside the glass glass cupboard. So, but M is not aware that Sri Ramakrishna, what is the intention of Sri Ramakrishna in touching Narendra? He says, is this what is known as seeing God in man? Does he see God in man? That's why he is trying to touch that divinity which is within Narendra. Not his body, but something inside the body which he can see, others can't see. Soon Thakur begins to lose outer consciousness, all awareness of the outside world. Perhaps this is what is called half consciousness. Ardhabahya avastha, they call it in Bengali. Ardhabahya means semi-conscious. It's not fully samadhi, but he used to go into bhava when he heard some beautiful songs. That is known as bhava samadhi. So that Chaitanya experience, Chaitanya, you will find the moment somebody sang Kirtan used to go into these states. So M was very well conversant with these bhava samadhi. So he thinks Thakur, by seeing Narendra, seeing the divinity, the glow of divinity in Narendra, perhaps he is going into bhava samadhi. He has his hand on Naren's feet as if he is massaging the feet of Narayan. So when he was just touching him inadvertently or maybe deliberately touched Naren's feet also, like one would touch the feet of a child. And this kind of behavior surprised from M, and he thought, does he see Narayana? Is he in a state where he's seeing God everywhere? He doesn't see Narendra, the physical Narendra who was quarreling and arguing. He's not seeing him anymore. He's seeing the divinity within Narendra. So he says, again he moves his hand. Is he serving the Lord or is it transmitting power to Narendra? So now this action which Sri Ramakrishna is doing is not M is not able to understand the real purpose. That is known only to Sri Ramakrishna and perhaps to Narendra. That what is the purpose? Is he transmitting some kind of spiritual power? We found that Narendra also, when he was doing sadhana, he asked Abhedananda to touch his knee, and suddenly he felt like an electric shock passing through his body. And then Thakur scolded him. He said, first you gather spiritual power, then you start distributing. Don't do it now, you will lose all your power. So then anyway, that was a blessing for Abhedananda, Swami Abhedananda. So this is possible by touch. If Naren could do it, Thakur could definitely do it. So that is one reason why he was touching Narendra, as if to transmit some kind of spirituality, and so that his reasoning becomes less and he accepts the true spiritual experience as the only valid proof of spiritual reality. Suddenly his mood changes. What is he saying to Narendra with folded hands? And in the process, he's folding his hands and saying something, as if he's seeing Narayana in him. This had happened earlier also. He told him, you are the Nara Rishi who has come down to this earth. Because as a guru, he could see things in Narendra which Naren himself did not believe. When he said, you have 18 powers, if Keshav has one power, you have 18 such powers. Narendra simply laughed because he thought, what is this? Keshav Chandra Sen has spoken before the queen. He is such an accomplished scholar, accomplished speaker, and I am a college student, and he says you have 18 powers. Because when Sri Ramakrishna spoke, he spoke out of experience. So these people who are gurus, they can see the future and they can see the infinite possibilities of the disciple. And though the disciple at that time, even a great disciple like Narendra could not accept, why is Thakur behaving like that, worshipping, praising me, folding his hands and speaking certain things? Because he is seeing, he is having a strange intuition. Maybe he is seeing directly. Some people do it out of intuition. Some gurus do it out of intuition. But here he is seeing the divinity shining in Narendra. He knows what his possibilities are, what he will be doing in future. So he says, his mood changes, and if with folded hands he is telling Narendra, he says, sing a song and I will be restored. He says, I am in a very high state now. So unless you sing a song and bring some kind of bhakti in me, my mind will not come down and I can't stand on my legs. Oh, Nityananda is intoxicated with the love of Gauranga. So the Gauranga and Nityananda, they were companions, and very often Nityananda, when he was in the company of Gauranga Mahaprabhu or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used to be intoxicated like that. So that is the benefit of satsanga. When people had Thakur satsanga, as Turiyananji said, we were transported into a different world. The very presence, the very touch of Thakur, of Sri Ramakrishna, was so intoxicating that they used to feel as if Gauranga Nityananda was Gauranga's companion, felt in the company of Gauranga, Nityananda. He is silent for a while and sits speechless like a figure in a painting. Now this is the highest state. He goes into that state and then becomes totally, he has a totally blank sort of outlook. He's not in bhava anymore. It's a still higher state where you just look at the things around you. Perhaps people think he is looking at something. You go simply slide yourself in your mood. Even some of us can experience that. We are looking at things, but we are thinking of something very deep, that though we are looking at things around us, our attention is somewhere else. People mistake it to be absent-mindedness, but it need not be absent-mindedness in all cases. If you are a spiritual aspirant, sometimes you may enter into this kind of absent-mindedness, which is because you are thinking of God, you are repeating the mantra, and you are seeing everything with the eyes open, you are hearing everything with the ears open, but you are not registering anything. That is a state which Sri Ramakrishna, much higher state of course, and like a figure in the painting. The figure which is there in the painting appears to be looking at us, and with piercing eyes. Sometimes the painters are very good. If you see some of the pictures of Holy Mother or Sri Ramakrishna in a very, very exalted mood, somebody had taken those pictures. So they feel as if they are seeing something inside of us. We get that feeling. They don't see us. The look is not worldly. We can easily make out, if one is sensitive, you can easily make out the difference between the eyes and the look of a worldly person and the look of a spiritual person. They seem to be gazing at you with some kind of absent-mindedness, because they are not seeing the external devotee. They are not seeing external Narendra. Thakur is seeing something inside Narendra, some great spiritual existence or consciousness which is grasping his attention, and that is why he is in a bhav samadhi. He does not behave in a normal way. He says, then overwhelmed with divine emotions, he says, beware Radha lest you fall into Jamuna, you who are mad with love for Krishna. Still overwhelmed with divine emotion, he quotes a song. Friend, how far is that wood where my Shama Sundara is? I see Krishna here, I can walk no further. This was Radha's condition after Sri Krishna left Vrindavan. She used to see Krishna everywhere. Whenever, whatever memory she had when she associated herself with Krishna, when she was in the company of Krishna, she used to like certain trees. They used to uh, go for walks and go on the banks of the Yamuna. So seeing those things, the old memories became so overwhelmingly powerful that she practically sometimes fell into the Jamuna river, thinking that Krishna is there. Krishna is here, Krishna is there. So she literally became obsessed with the idea, and she could not believe that Krishna has left her, like the other gopis also. So he says, how far is that wood where my Sham Sundar? They are searching for Krishna. No, they know. In normal conditions, they would have known that Krishna has left Vrindavan. There is no point in searching the gross Krishna. But their devotion was so much that they were happy with the memory which they had of Krishna, and seeing that they would behave like mad, or they would behave in an absent-minded way. That is what is happening to Sri Ramakrishna. Seeing Narendra, he is seeing this divinity. He is not in his normal mood and he is just singing these songs to come down from that exalted mood. Now Thakur has lost all consciousness of the world and remembers nothing. Narendra is seated before him, but he is not even conscious of Narendra. He has no awareness of the outside world. It is as if his mind and soul have merged into God. Madagata antaratmana. Now that is the verse he is quoting from the Gita, M is quoting. Madgatena antaratmana. He, 6th chapter, we are yet to discuss that. We discussed that when we completed the 6th chapter. The 47th verse said, Madgatena antaratmana. His inmost self merged in me. I mean, Lord is saying that Madgatena antaratmana means in his innermost self he is perceiving me, or perceiving Krishna, or perceiving the Ishta. When we are in that state, when Sri Sri Ramakrishna here is seeing divinity within the heart of Narendra. He could obviously see it within his own heart, otherwise he could not see it in others. Seeing God in everybody means being one with the God. When you are one with the God which is in your own heart, then you see that same God at a later stage everywhere. When you see Narendra, you were seeing that. Just as the gopis, they saw Krishna everywhere. When they saw Yamuna, they thought Krishna is there because the color of Yamuna was dark. So they thought it is Krishna, and they simply, some of them were about to be drowned in that. So, deeply drunk with the love of Gaur, saying this, he again stands up with a cry. So, this is because Narendra is singing the song of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and or maybe Thakur has started the song, he is singing some other Brahmo song, but that also means the same thing, that he stands up with a cry, he sits down again and says, yonder a light approaches, I see it but do not know from where it comes. So he is seeing some strange visions, Sri Ramakrishna. He is in a very exalted state after touching Narendra and seeing the divinity within him. And then now Narendra is singing the song, because he has been asked to sing a song to bring Sri Ramakrishna down from that highest Nirvikalpa Samadhi. By giving your vision, you have rid me of all sorrows and charmed my soul. Behold you, all the seven worlds forget their grief. What to speak of my poor self, so mean and unworthy. So this is a song, a Bengali song maybe, I don't know what song this is, which song this is, but the meaning is, after getting the vision of God, all my sorrows, grief have gone away, and by seeing your wonderful form, divine form, all the seven worlds, Saptaloka, they say there are seven loka, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Jana, Tapaha, Sa. There are so many seven planes of existence where spiritual aspirants go. We start with Bhu, Bhuva, that is the Antariksha, Swaha, the heavens. Then there are things beyond that. So all the seven worlds become peaceful when they see you. What to speak of a puny little existence like mine with a stupid ego? We people will definitely be blessed. That's the meaning. That my poor self, so mean and unworthy, can you not remove my sorrow? If you can remove the sorrows of seven worlds, of great people, of a very highly accomplished people whose problems are more complex than mine, if you can remove their grief, can you not remove my grief? That is the idea behind this song. Sri Ramakrishna is losing all consciousness of the external world. As he listens to this song, with his eyes closed and body still, he goes into samadhi again. Just as a child who has lost his companion is confused, in the same way, after coming back from samadhi, coming out of samadhi, he says, who will take me back? You see, whenever Sri Ramakrishna came back from the highest consciousness, it took time for him to know where he is and what this world is. Just like when you get up from the sleep, it takes some time. Sometimes if you are in a very deep sleep or had a nice dream, and then you suddenly find that you are somewhere else, you are on your own bed, but it takes some time after you get up. So also Thakur, now he is confused. He has just come back, but he says, who will take me back? He knows he has come to the devotee's house, and now somebody has to take him back. Though the arrangements were made in normal state of mind, he would have known that somebody has been allotted this duty and I will go back safe. But like a child who is confused, he used to behave like that when he came down from samadhi. He says, who will take me back? It is late at night, the 10th day of the dark fortnight of Falgun. It is very dark when Thakur prepares to return to Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. As he is about to get into carriage, devotees stand nearby. Sri Ramakrishna gets in, helped gently by the devotees. He still remains in a God intoxicated state. The carriage leaves and the devotees go, each to his home. Overhead shines the starry dark. It was very dark. Thakur had spent so much time in this devotee's house, singing, dancing, talking and giving all such wonderful advice and parable spiritual. And finally when he was in samadhi, then he suddenly realizes, now I should go back to Dakshineshwar. It is dark. So Overhead shines the starry night sky. Upon the canvas of the heart is the wonderful image of Sri Ramakrishna, and in the memory of the assembly of devotees, like a happy dream, mind's eye is filled with that love. Now, this is the uniqueness of M. He, uh, he has understood that this whole atmosphere has been so charged now. I have to record these things. I have to meticulously meditate on this scene because I am not going to get this scene. So I am not able to get access to his conversations later on. Maybe now this exalted mood, it may or may not come. So he is making a pen picture here after the meeting is over. When Sri Ramakrishna is left, he says, let me put down what I saw today so that I can meditate on it. That was the main purpose of his writing the gospel, not to share it with everybody. His idea was that when I go home, when I miss Sri Ramakrishna, when I miss these wonderful things, whatever I have written, I will read again and go back into that wonderful atmosphere and meditate on that. So he is writing, like a happy dream, the mind's eye is filled with that love. Devotees are going home along the main road in Calcutta, some of them enjoying the pleasant spring breeze, sing the same song as they go. By giving your vision, you have rid me of all sorrows and you have charmed my soul. That means Narendra's singing was so powerful and so full of divine mood, and Sri Ramakrishna added that divine mood to that song. And all the devotees are now going back. M feels that they are all singing this song, humming this song, and trying to enjoy the bliss that they just now saw. Thakur has left, but at the same time, the whole atmosphere is still charged. So, Mani walks along wondering to himself, does God actually assume a human form and come to earth? Because he, being a Brahmo and has just started coming, he also is not very much convinced, or he doesn't have faith, but he had very carefully recorded these conversations. That's why he says, is divine incarnation really true? How does the infinite God become a man 3.5 cubits tall? Can the infinite become finite? That is the question which is an issue with many people who try to reason too much. And M was educated in the Western way, so he has a tendency to argue everything, rationalize everything, and trying to understand everything through the prism of reason. Now he says, how can the we call God as infinite, Satchidananda, but how can the finite become infinite? How can a human being absorb or contain in himself this infinite consciousness? So that is the idea. He says, can the infinite, I have reasoned enough, but what I have understood, I have known nothing by reasoning. So M feels that I have reasoned and I have tried to understand all these things, how the finite becomes infinite, infinite becomes finite and assumes a human form. I am not going to understand it in this life. So he gives up and he says, Sri Ramakrishna has said beautifully, as long as one argues and reasons, one does not attain the goal, one does not attain God. This is also true. I have only an ounce of intellect. How can I know God with it? Can one seer pot contain 4 seers of milk? This is also Thakur's example. You have come with a pot which can hold 1 seer and you give me all the 4 seers of milk. The milk will spill out. So our reason is limited. We can understand only a little. Otherwise, it will all go over the top. So he says, Thakur said, if God in his mercy shows himself to you, it is understood in a single moment. Otherwise, Goethe was a famous philosopher. M had read him. So he says, Goethe, lying on his deathbed, said, light, more light. If God in his compassion strikes a light and shows it to you, then all your doubts vanish. The way the illiterate fishermen of Palestine recognized Jesus, or devotees like Srivasa recognized Gauranga as the perfect God incarnate. So only a few lucky people who have faith and who develop that faith understand or accept God as an incarnation and get the benefit. And if God does not reveal himself by his grace, what can be done? Sri Ramakrishna has said it. I shall put my faith in the incarnation of God. He himself has taught faith, faith, faith. Faith in the words of the Guru. I have made you the pole star of my life. Never shall I lose my way in this sea of the world. By God's grace, I have developed faith in his words. Now, this is M telling himself. If faith is the only solution, and I have got that faith and the grace of the Guru, why am I so stupid to argue and why not just follow? So, I shall continue to believe in what he says. Let others do what they like. Now, he is not, you see, his devotion is so much, his faith is so much towards his Guru that Sri Ramakrishna chose him to write all these things. Because he knew M would not edit anything, he will not use his reason, he will just report verbatim what Thakur says. Because he had 100% faith in his Guru. So he said, if I have faith, why should I bother? Why should I try to convince others? I am not bothered, I get what I want and I am happy. Why should I give up such faith which is rare even among gods? With great difficulty I have this faith. If I argue with these foolish people, I will lose my faith. The loss will be mine, not Thakur's. So I have to be careful. Have I to become another Faust with intellectual discussions? Faust was another Eastern philosopher, Western philosopher. So now this whole thing, this conversation, we will discuss this in the next class. We are almost coming towards the end of our time. He says, I don't want to become another philosopher and go on discussing these things anymore. I have faith, let me cherish my faith in my Guru and let me hold on to it and be happy and satisfied and make progress. In the deep darkness of night, a ray of moon enters the window and Faust is lying alone in his room. Alas, I have not been able to understand anything. The study of philosophy and science have served me in vain. Shame on me. Saying this, will I then, like him, take up a vial of poison to commit suicide? Or else that is what happened to Faust. See, he was not convinced. He went on reasoning and finally became mad. And when he was lying down alone in the room, he said, shame on me, I have not even got the truth. And then out of disgust, he takes the vial of poison. So, or else like another person, Alastair, who not being able to bear the burden of ignorance, shall I place my head upon a rock and wait for death? No, I need not fathom this mystery with an ounce of intelligence like those tragic savants. These great people, though they were intellectually very great, they finally had to die such painful deaths because of their doubt, because of their reason. So M is a very wise person. He says, I don't want to die like these people. Go on arguing, make myself miserable and make others miserable. That's what reasonable people who think they have a wonderful reasoning power do. They reason so much that they end up making they end up creating problems for themselves and problems for others. They confuse themselves and confuse others. That's why Thakur came to make things simple, make things understandable even to a simple intellect, because he knew the fallacy, the limitations of intellect. It can go up to a certain point. Beyond that, it is a disease. It will lead to death, like it happened in the case of Faust and this Alastair. So M, who has read Western philosophy and read logic, he says, I don't want to suffer the same fate and die like these people who vainly trying to reach for the truth by reasoning, use their limited reasoning, and then they thought, we have reached the limit of our reasoning, now we can't get the truth, so let us die. So it was so stupid of them. So Sri Ramakrishna, M says, I don't want to do that. There is no need to commit suicide because a vessel of one seer is not able to contain 4 seers of milk. If there are 4 seers of milk, I can't use this intellect to hold the whole wisdom. So instead of that, a wonderful counsel which Sri Ramakrishna has given, faith in the words of the Guru. O God, give me that faith and let me not wander from here to there for nothing. That which is not bound to happen, don't send me out to find. And what Thakur has instructed, may I gain pure love and devotion at your lotus feet. Love without alloy and love for God that wells up unbidden out of the depths of the immortal soul. And may I not be enchanted by your world bewitching Maya. Bless me with this, I pray. So reflecting on this, on Sri Ramakrishna's incomparable love and wonderful wisdom and faith in his Guru, Sri Ramakrishna M is living that place. So we will continue next time. We have just completed 1 hour. So if there are some questions, you can now ask. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Maharaj Pranam.
Yes.
Damkriti here. Yes.
Yes. Please continue. A
Maharaj,
little
as you said,
loudly. Little loudly.
hello.
Yes.
Now, is it audible?
Yes. Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Maharaj, is there anything that we get to read about M, biography or
Oh, there
some
are
book?
2 very good books, one written by Chetanananda and one published earlier by Kathamrut Bhavan. I can send you the reference, but the one written by Chetanananda is a wonderful book on M. It is a very big book, so it is a very detailed biography of M. It is worth reading, especially when you read the Gospel. If you read the Gospel along with this biography of M, then you get a very clear picture of the mental makeup of Sri Ramakrishna, M, Master Mahashay, Mahendranath Gupta as he was known. So I'll send you the names
Maharaj,
of.
is it in Bengali or English?
No, it is in English. Swami Chetanananda has written in English and it is
Okay.
now available. I think the Indian edition is cheaper. You can get it from Advaita Ashrama. So I think in Amazon also you'll get. And there is another book which you can get from Kathamrut Bhavan in Chandigarh, which is also a biography of M, but it is not as exhaustive and authentic as Chetananand's biography. Okay.
Achha. Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Any questions? Are there any questions or shall I conclude? Okay, so I conclude. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Parnamastu.